So there's this false binary I keep seeing when it comes to Iran and some other countries. It's that if you recognize the Iranian protesters' demands as legitimate, you're somehow a mouthpiece for imperialist foreign powers that seek regime change in Iran. In other words, protesters' demands and their humanity, not important. What is important is the binary, whether you support imperialism or not. And I've seen the same tanky binary used to discredit popular discontent in Venezuela. You're either a lackey for Trump's imperialism or an authoritarian apologist. And if you cheered for the fall of the Assad regime, you must have been pro-Israel. All of these fallacies, these false binaries, completely ignore the lived reality of people who actually reside in these countries. They reduce their real human suffering to some sort of contest on a geopolitical chessboard between imperialism and some sort of imagined axis of resistance. Hi, I'm Yara, and today I want to unpack some of these false binaries we sometimes see in the media when it comes to protests in Iran, Venezuela, Syria, and more. Let's start with Iran, a place I've both lived and reported in. The protests we've been seeing started in response to the horrific state of the Iranian economy. With the Iranian rial plummeting in value, prices for everything have soared. Youth unemployment is very high, and Iran's poverty rate is estimated to be over 30% due to domestic mismanagement and years of US sanctions that have together made life a living hell for many. And it's not just the economy. Iran is facing a multi-year drought of historic proportions. There's an electricity crisis with frequent power outages. There's the decades of intense social restrictions that have only just now started to lighten up a bit. And the country was just attacked by Israel, killing hundreds of Iranian civilians. So it's not a surprise that protesters' initially economic demands have morphed into something bigger. A massive, sustained, nationwide protest movement whose chants are targeting the entire establishment. Various reports estimate that Iran's security forces have killed hundreds of people so far, and we know from previous rounds of protests that the Iranian government's response could become even more brutal. Now let's turn to Venezuela, where people have also been worried about putting food on the table. Under Nicolas Maduro's corrupt government, hyperinflation ran rampant, and food and medicine became scarce and expensive. His regime was also marked by arbitrary detention, forced disappearances, and torture. Meanwhile, crippling US sanctions led to a drastic decline in Venezuela's production of oil, which its entire economy relies on. And let's not forget what we saw in Syria. When Bashar al-Assad was still in power, Syrians were killed, disappeared, tortured, displaced, or imprisoned by the millions. The vast majority of Syrians lived in poverty, under constant surveillance and fear. But look, recognizing protesters' demands and their suffering is not the same as endorsing foreign powers and their plans to exploit the situation at hand for their own benefit. What exactly do we stand for if we allow our desired outcome of the geopolitical chessboard to drown out the voices of suffering people who are standing up against daunting odds to claim the same universal rights that we want for ourselves?